Hello guys, so today we will be working on lab number 6 of Internet Security course. In this lab, we will mainly cover the fundamental concept of a software called Metasploit. It's one of the most widely used software for hacking, for example, for remote code execution, for example, to launch attacks, take control of the system, stuff like that. Metasploit comes with bunch of malware, exploits, venoms, payloads, data collection tools. It has bunch of things in it. So we will be working on Metasploit in this particular lab, and in this lab we will be covering the fundamentals, the basic concept of Metasploit. In the part one, we're gonna actually install a Metasploitable 2, which is a operating system which we are going to use as a target for our attacks, because we cannot actually target the real world system, real operating system. So Metasploitable 2 is a Unix based operating system which runs on Ubuntu Linux distribution. And why we call it Metasploitable? Because it is Metasploitable. My point is, like, it is vulnerable to all the exploits within the Metasploit. So you will see bunch of viruses, malware within the Metasploit, and all those malware can be launched against Metasploitable. So Metasploitable 2 is a completely vulnerable operating system. Then we will cover some basics of Metasploit. I'll just introduce you what exactly Metasploit is and how we can use that. Then I'll show you how we can actually gather data by using Metasploit. There's one utility of Metasploit which is called auxiliary. We will use that, and auxiliary is typically used to gather information about the target, just like nmap kind of things. Then last, for example, let's say if you write your own exploit, you write your own venom or your own exploit, let's say you find a new vulnerability, and to exploit that vulnerability, you write a script. So how you can add that script in Metasploit? So we will see that. I'll show you guys how we can do that, how we can customize the Metasploit, okay? Like how we can put new exploits within our Metasploit. So these are the four main agenda items, four main things that we are going to cover in lab number 6. In lab number 7, we will do some advanced things like the real hacking, how we can take control of the system and stuff like that. So let's start with the first part, which is installation of Metasploitable 2, which is basically the one operating system. So first thing that you guys have to do is just type here Metasploitable 2. So just type Metasploitable, just Google it, Metasploitable 2, and click this link, Metasploitable download SourceForge. Just click that and please download this. I have already downloaded that. So once you guys download that, it will be downloaded in a zip file. It will be a compressed file, a zip file. So let me show you. I have already downloaded that. So I'm gonna directly show you where it is. So it should be under my downloads right here. So if you see, this is basically Metasploitable once you guys download that one. If you double click this, so of course the thing is, since it's a zip file, you have to have a WinRAR 7-zip to unzip that. So this is the folder, this is the directory which contains my Metasploitable. Right click, extract to a specified folder, or copy, let me just extract to a specified folder, and let me extract on my desktop. So it is getting extracted. So please remember, it's a zip file, so you have to download WinRAR or 7-zip to unzip that. So I should have Metasploitable on my desktop. I should have that. Let's see where it is. It's right here. This is Metasploitable. That's the operating system which we're gonna use. So now it's time to install that. So Virtualbox, already did that, but let me show you. So just hit new, type the name of operating system, let's say MS2, which is Metasploitable 2, or whatever the name you want to give. Then type is going to be Linux, and the variant is Ubuntu 64. So as I told you guys, Metasploitable 2 is Linux, Unix distribution which runs with Ubuntu. Next, 1 GB RAM is fine. It's a very lightweight operating system, doesn't have any GUI, nothing like that. Now, when you come to that, you have to click use existing virtual hard drive, the third option. Then click this button. Then if you don't see the Metasploitable here, you need to hit plus sign here. and go to wherever you saved that particular folder. Let's get to that desktop, and let me see where is Metasploitable. Right here. Click this and hit open and choose create. So almost done, just few more things and then it will be fully functional. Just hit settings, go to network. So under the first adapter, it has to be bridge adapter. Then advanced, the promiscuous mode should be allow all. So it can actually communicate with over all, including the host plus the virtual machine. It should be communicatable. So promiscuous mode, allow all, bridge adapter, and hit OK. Absolutely ready. Metasploitable 2. Let's start it. So now if you see here, let me scale mode, switch. Let me just maximize that. So they are basically loading all the drivers, all the services. It's gonna take few more seconds. Just let it run. Let me just stop the video. So when it will be ready, I'll show you what's the username and password. All right, so we are here, Msf Login. Once you guys get here, so the username and password is written right here. If you see, Msf admin, Msf admin is the username, Msf admin is the password. So once you log in, operating system is ready. If you want to see ls, for example, this is basically what you have inside the operating system. If config, that's the operating system name, IP address. Please remember this IP address because you're going to use it for many purposes, of course, for attacks and all that. 10.0.0.113. That's the IP address of my machine. Please note down your IP address. Okay. Okay, now let's turn on over Kali Linux. So it's done. The part 1 is done. Once you find the IP address, just take a screenshot of your Metasploitable 2. So let's move on to part number 2, which is the basics of Metasploit. To run the Metasploit, you need to turn on your Kali Linux. And once you turn on the Kali Linux, then I'll show you how to run Metasploit and what are the different components in Metasploit. And let's see how what are the other basic parts of Metasploit. All right, so this is our Kali Linux. So once you guys get to Kali Linux, just open your terminal and you can just type here Msf console. So once you type Msf console, it is Metasploit framework console. It will automatically turn on your Metasploit. Metasploit is basically one of the leading exploitation framework. Like it has the, you can customize it. It comes with bunch of exploit, just like Kali Linux. Kali Linux comes with bunch of offensive tools. Exactly the same way Metasploit comes with many exploits. You can see down here when the Metasploit will start, you will see it has 1700 exploits. Okay, you might have less than that or maybe more than that. 968 auxiliaries, 299 post. I'll explain you what is that. 503 payloads, 40 encoders, 10 knobs. This is basically what the Metasploit comes with. One more thing, there's basically a GUI of Metasploit as well, which is called Armitage. This is basically a GUI of Metasploit. We will see that in our lab number 7. So Metasploit is basically a command line based stuff, and Armitage is something like, if you wanna see the GUI of Metasploit, that's Armitage. The organization who has designed Metasploit, it's called Rapid7. That's the name of company, Rapid7, who also made Nexpose. Nexpose is one of the leading software for vulnerability assessment. Nexpose. So Nexpose is again, it's also designed by Rapid7. Rapid7 has designed Metasploit, Metasploitable 2. All these operating system software, these are basically designed by Rapid7. So that's coming back to our Metasploit. If you see, this is Metasploit. It shows you how many exploit mean the viruses. I'll explain you all these. Auxiliaries are basically used typically for scanning, for vulnerability assessment. Posts are basically the reverse shells. Like after you have established a connection, you got 299 ways to export the data. Payloads, again, the full-fledged stuff. I'll explain you. Encoder to conceal your, conceal over weapons or venoms. And knobs, I'll explain you what exactly the knobs things are. So here, if you see, this is basically called the banner of Metasploit. Let's say if you want to change the banner, so just type here banner. It will come up with a different banner. You can see here, it will show you a different banner. If you just type another banner, you will get the different banner of Metasploit. Okay, so it has bunch of stuff to show you guys. So let's start with the first thing, which I'm gonna explain you guys here. We have seen a bunch of things: exploit, auxiliary, post, payloads, encoders, knobs. What are these things? And then I will get into that, and I'll show you guys how well they are organized. I mean, what's basically inside the exploit, what is inside the auxiliaries, and all that things. We'll explain that. So starting with the components of Metasploit. So first component of Metasploit, as you can see down here, the first component is exploit. So let me explain you what is exploit. You just have to Google it, just find the best definition, whatever you can find. Exploit is basically, let me just give you an idea, it's basically kind of, it's the malware. Exploit is basically a malware, which takes advantage of a vulnerability and install the payload on victim's computer. Okay, so it's basically a malware which is based on a specific vulnerability, which exploit a specific vulnerability. Okay, it is not extensible. It can only exploit a specific vulnerability. That's what the exploit is. So what does it mean? It means you got 1700 malwares within your Metasploit. Okay, which can exploit 1700 vulnerabilities of different operating system. Then we got 503 payloads. Payload is basically a full-fledged, you can say, a malware. Like it's a complete malware. So payload, like this is this exploit is basically like I mean a specific malware, a small piece of code. While payload can be attached with any file. So this malware has to be injected directly, but this payload can be actually you can actually create this payload, and you can inject this payload in a PDF file, in a Word file, or stuff like that. So these payloads, again, these payloads are malware, but these malware can be attached with the with PDF files, Word file, and stuff like that. Okay, you can do that, or you can create .exe files. Any kind of file can be created with these payloads. Then we got next is auxiliary. Auxiliary is basically it's the you can say it's a data collection software. We're just like Nmap kind of thing. It basically performs sniffing. You can actually perform sniffing. You can actually do scanning. Let's say you can scan for open port, close port. You can actually, find, for example, if there would be a weak password, you can actually scan for that. I mean, all kind of scanning of the system can be performed through auxiliaries. So if you see, look at over Metasploit, we got 968 auxiliaries, 968 different ways to scan the system or scan or to find the information about the target. Then we got post. So posts is basically it's basically allows the actions after the session is open. What does it mean? It means basically, for example, you got a system got exploited. Your malware is running perfectly okay. So post will allow you to establish a reverse connection. Okay, so there are different ways to establish the connection, and we got 299 posts. Okay. Then we got encoder. Encoder, as I already told you guys, encoder is basically to encode, as the name suggests. Encoders are basically which conceals the exploits and the payloads. Conceal the exploits. Sorry, it's conceal the exploits or payload. I mean, just to avoid the detection from antiviruses or malware. The last is basically knobs. Knobs is basically called it's called no operations, and knobs is typically used for remote code execution. Remote code execution. Okay. So these are different components of Metasploit. If you guys will have any questions, do let me know. But these are mostly we're going to use these exploits. We will use payloads and we will mainly use auxiliaries. Mostly these are the three things that we will be working on Metasploit, and typically hackers, they typically actually use these. And post is basically by default, you can use any post with any exploit, with any payload, with any auxiliary. Okay. And encoder, same thing. For encoder, you can you don't have to use any specific encoder. You can use generic encoders to hide your data and all. So let me show you a few more things about these stuff. This is basically the part B, pay screenshot of different components. So let's move on to part number B. I'll actually show you, visualize you guys these components of Metasploit, what is inside these components and how these components or these things can be used. Okay, so let's see where are these components. So let me go back to Kali and let's turn on my Metasploit again. I have accidentally closed that. So let me turn it on. Okay, so it started running now. Let me show you all these directories, like what is inside the exploit, what is inside the auxiliaries and stuff like that, and how it can be used. So first thing is we need to get to their directory. CD, let me see if I can directly get to that, or CD modules. Okay, so we need to get to the directory first. It's the under user directory, share. You can directly go there, I mean, by using the GUI stuff, but let me show you how we can get to that by using that. Metasploit framework. Okay, now we got in here. Now we can actually, if I show you ls, so these are different things available within the Metasploit framework. You can see configuration files, gem files, and all that stuff. One thing which I forgot to tell you, Metasploit, all these scripts of Metasploit are designed in the Ruby language. So if you want to write a script for Metasploit, it should be in the Ruby. So let's get to this modules, where we have all these modules. Let me write it down, CD modules. Now you can see here all those 6 modules which we defined, we just discussed, auxiliary, encoder, exploit, and all that. So let's see what is inside the exploit. Let's start exploring exploit first. So let's get to exploit, CD exploits. Now we are inside exploit, let ls. Now you guys can see here what are the different types of malware here. You can see this is the one which I have created. Not created, I actually put it by my own, but I'll show you guys how you can actually put your stuff. It's in over part number 4. You can see we got exploit for Android, we got exploit for Apple, iOS, for Windows, for Unix, Solaris. All these exploits are right here. These are well organized. Let's see if you want to see the Windows. So let's go to Windows. This is directory, by the way. So let's get into Windows, ls. Within Windows, if you see, these are different types of exploit, not the exploit. We got Sftp exploit. Let's see, where is FTP? FTP right here. Let's see what is Sftp exploit is. So let's get to FTP. We are in FTP exploit now, ls. So these are different type of FTP exploit. What does it mean? It means if somebody's FTP service is running and it's not protected with a firewall, you can use any of these exploit and you can establish a reverse connection, hack their computer. If you want to see the coding, it's very simple. Let me show you. Xlink server, for example, just copy that. Let me just copy any of this. Let me copy this. Let me show you the code. This is, by the way, the code of, that particular script, this particular script. This is basically the code created by, of course, the Metasploit. You can actually put your own script and your own stuff within your Metasploit. So this is basically how it is organized. If I just exit out of this directory, cd ls, now I'm right here within this directory. And you can explore any other as well. If you want to see email, for example, what are the email malware or exploit for Windows? So cd email. So for email, we got these particular exploit. You can see there are 3 these exploits for email. Okay. So let me exit out. So I'm back here. Let me exit out again. So I'm still inside the exploit. Let me get out of exploit. So I'm now back to my module directory. So this was basically exploit. I've just shown you guys how exploit look like and what is inside the exploit. Let's see what are inside the auxiliary. Let's look at the auxiliary first now. So let's say if we just copy this auxiliary, let's see what is inside it. Okay. All right, so now if I just see what is inside that, you can see there are a bunch of directories under that for exploit, for auxiliaries to gather information. There are a bunch of things like, let's try this scanner thing. What is inside scanner? So cd scanner. So for scanning, there are a bunch of things that can be scanned. Bunch of things if you see. For scanning module, we got backdoor, db2, you can see nextpose. Let's try nextpose, for example. So for nextpose, we got this particular thing, login. I mean, you need to have a nextpose account in order to run that. For example, let's say, let me get out of this. You can try, for example, VMware, Wise, I mean, all these are different modules for scanning. So let's try SMTP. Let's see what is inside SMTP. So these are different modules for SMTP, version RF, relay, and stuff like that. These are different modules, different things that you can do or you can use, in fact, for scanning. Okay. So I'm not, everything is, I mean, for rest of the stuff, everything is exactly the same. Let me see if I can get out of it. Okay. So for knobs, payloads, for everything, let me just quickly show you the payloads and then we will move on to our payloads. For payloads, if you guys see here, we got singles and we got stagers and we got stages as well. Single is basically the small piece of code, one specific attack. It's just one specific attack. I'll show you. Stagers are basically, it's used to perform or communicate with the target and attacker, like just for communication. And stages is basically the metasploit. It's the metasploit reverse shell. We will use that. It's the large program. Single, specific attack, stager for communication, and stages are basically the metasploit reverse shell for large program. Let me show you how it looks like. Let's quickly see. Let's get to singles. So these are basically single specific attacks for different, you know, softwares and different operating system. For example, let's quickly see the Windows. For Windows, you guys can see these are the different payloads available. The metasploit thing, this will actually use, you know, reverse shell connection, PowerShell connection, shell bind, and all. I mean, just to establish the reverse connections. Okay, that's basically what is inside the. So now this is basically the introduction of Metasploit framework. You got the idea what are the different resources, components, and all that. Let me quickly show you where exactly these are. I mean, I have shown you through the command prompt. Let me quickly show you from here. So it was under user directory, share directory. Just look for Metasploit. Look for Metasploit here. It's Armitage. Metasploit should be M. Metasploit framework right here. If you click that, this is Metasploit framework. This is basically the modules. These are those modules which I've shown you guys. Exploit. These are exploit. If you see, this is basically the Windows. If you click Windows, you will see all the other possible modules, antiviruses. These are fake antiviruses kind of modules to exploit. I mean, this is basically, these are different malwares run on different operating system. You guys can see down here, all these exploit. Same is the case with the knobs. These are different knobs for different kind of variants, different operating system, different application. PHP knob and auxiliary. This is auxiliary, how it looks like, and all these different components within the auxiliary as well. So this is basically these are the different components of Metasploit. I hope you guys got the idea about all these components here. Okay, so now let's use one of the component which is called auxiliary, and please take some screenshots here. Just take some screenshots of this thing, like from here, or maybe you can take a screenshot from, you know, when you explored different stuff from your command prompt. So just take few screenshots and paste some screenshots under part 2. Okay. Okay, folks, so let's move on to our part number three. So let's use auxiliary. Let me just demonstrate how we can use auxiliaries to gather information about our target. And our target is going to be our Metasploit 2, this machine, which we install in part one. So turn on this machine if you have turned it off, okay? Uh, and note down the IP address of this machine because that IP address will be required to collect information about this victim or the target, this victim, which is Metasploit. So we are going to use information about their SSH, which is secure shell, like for secure for IPsec thing. In fact, we're going to use that, and we'll see how we can collect information about it and how we can create the venom. So because the first step is collection information about the target and all the tools which typically would run with Kali Linux, like Nmap, for example, Uniscan, for example, Aquatone, many of the tools, they do come with the Metasploit. You can directly run once you get to Metasploit framework. For example, let's type Nmap under Metasploit, and let's say I just want to actually build a three-way handshaking to see open port. So ST, S is scan, three-way handshaking, IP address of your Metasploitable. So it's 10.0.0.113 in my case. So please put your IP address. It's in my case. Okay. Please put your IP address and enter. Now it will look for the open ports for this Metasploitable. It's gonna take a few seconds. Let's let it run. You guys can see here they have established three-way handshake process. Three-way handshaking mean it's kind of like full connection with the with my Metasploit, and you guys can see all the open ports in that computer. FTP port is open, SSH port is open, which is of course it's too risky to have all these ports open, in fact, and it's a deliberately vulnerable website application or operating system, you can say. So that's why we these ports are already open with that. Okay, you can use Nmap again. I mean, we can use Nmap and find the open ports, or we can scan that system directly from Metasploit. Got it? Then, for example, if you want to find the SSH version, like which SSH version is running, we can find here. Just type let me see auxiliary here. So let's type search SSH version. Let me try if it can actually show us the modules, because we are basically searching for the module which can show us SSH version information. It's going to take a few seconds. I'm going to stop the video here. All right, so you guys can see here, these are the different version are available for SSH, for collection of information about SSH. You guys can see here. One is the, again, you can see these are under auxiliaries. So we got fuzzers, scanner. Let's use a scanner. Let's use this scanner here. So how to use this scanner? You need to copy this scanner here, because that's a script. And now we will type here use what this particular scanner, which is under auxiliary scanner SSH version, which will collect the SSH version. Okay, and when what we have to do is, let's try that. Perfect. So we are inside it. Now let me see how we can actually add or we can set it up. Show options. In order to set this up, it's show options, sorry. So in show option, you can see here, it requires the remote host for which you wanna scan SSH version, okay, which is your target. The timeout, like when you need to timeout, for example, rather than, you know, doing it infinitely, you can set a timer here as well. So let me set my remote host, set our host, and our host is basically this machine, your the Metasploitable, because for which we are collecting the SSH version information. So I'm going to actually put the set remote host, and what's the IP address? 10.0.0.113. Okay, now you can see remote host is set. If you want to see that, show options, you guys can see here remote host is set now. For threading, it's one thread. The number of concurrent thread means like number of how many inquiries they will send. So you can actually change the number. Let me just change, let's thread set to let's make it 100 threads. It is set now, And let me show you the options again. Now you guys can see the new modified options. Okay, port is already set because SSH runs on 22 port. Timeout for 30 is 30 seconds. Good. Now let's run it. Now once you guys run it, you guys can see here, this is the complete version of their SSH. Okay, you guys can see here complete version of SSH in our lab number 7. I'll show you guys how this information will be helpful for us. You can see it is 8.04 SSH 2.0. These are different different matchings which they actually found. So I'll show you guys in detail in the next class if we see this particular thing here, this particular variant here, how we can hack that. So let's move to our part number 4, and in part number 4 we will learn how we can add a new exploit in Metasploit. For example, let's say if you guys write your own exploit, how we can add that exploit in Metasploit and how we can use that. Okay, because Metasploit will let it run, you can create a meta pattern and stuff like that. So all you have to do is write your exploit and you need to put it. So we will see how we can add a new exploit. It's not only exploit, you can write auxiliary, you can, for example, write encoder, payload, anything. You can actually put it inside the Metasploit. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you how we can, rather than creating a new exploit, I'm going to show you how we can get exploit and put it inside the Metasploit. So in order to do that, if you see, this is my Metasploit running. I got 1700 exploit currently, and let's do it how we can add a new exploit. So open your browser in Kali Linux and just type here exploit db. Just Google it. And Google it. Okay, let's see how, I don't know why it's taking so long. Let me just stop this and check my internet. Okay, my internet is back. So, okay, so you just have to Google exploit db. The first thing or the first link, just open that one. So if you see down here, this is basically the exploit database. Like people, the ethical hackers, whenever they write a new exploit, they actually upload down here. So all you have to do is we need to look for any exploit which is compatible with our Metasploit. Okay, like written in Ruby language, in fact. So let me write here. Let's see, the one which I remember. I think it's Flash Player. Flash Player. Yeah, we got it. So if you see down here, this is basically created in 2019 for Mac operating system. Author is Metasploit. Let me click that. So Adobe Flash Player, that's a great thing. And all this is basically the exploit. You guys can see down here, this is the exploit, and it will allow you to do some stuff. So what we're gonna do is we need to download this exploit, and let me save this exploit. Exploit got saved in my downloads. That's awesome. If you minimize that, and let me close my Metasploit, you can see 1700 exploits are there. Let's go back here under downloads. This is the new exploit which I have downloaded. Let me rename it. I've already did that the previously, so that's why it's showing up. Let me name it, for example, Mac Exploit or Mac Overflow, for example, Mac Overflow, or Mac, let's say Overflow _ Mac. Okay, rename it. Let me copy this, and now we need to get to our directory where our that stuff is. Let me show you again. So click here, places, go to computer, user directory, then go to share directory, look for Metasploit framework. Metasploit framework, look for modules, find exploits, and you can copy here and paste here, sorry. So exploit overflow Mac got copied here. Now if we close that, and if I go back here to my terminal and open my Msf admin, Msf console, sorry. Now if you guys see here, we got 1701 exploit. Got it? Let me show you, for example, the one which we just created. So if you just here search overflow Mac, So it will show you that particular exploit. I think that's the name which we wrote, or there was any other. What was the name? It's the overflow Mac. Okay, so I can change that. Let it search. All right, so if you see down here, I just use this keyword search overflow Mac, and this is basically the exploit which we just put in. And if you guys see down here, if I want to use that, so I can actually copy this exploit, just type use. Of course, we will use that in the next lab, but I just want to actually show you. We are inside it, and let's say show options. You guys can see here, it will show you a bunch of options, server host, server port, and all that stuff here. In the next class, I'll show you guys how exactly we can use that and how we can target a Mac operating system for this particular exploit. Okay, so that's it about our lab number 6. If you will have any questions, please bring it up in the class. Thank you.